Then I just recently graduated from water engineering master's course in TALTECH. But as you probably understand, I'm not the most precious student. So I can maybe say that I'm untalented in many ways. So my first education is actually finance and economic policy, after which, as I studied more specifically valuation of natural ecosystems, then I worked for a very long time in classical nature conservation. So these areas which you are going to visit in Soma and Pärnu River Dam, very close to my heart, as I worked in Pärnu region for 15 years. And then I have studied landscape architecture and not worked in that field, but continued from landscape architecture in this water engineering field. And now have worked in TALTECH research unit of urban water systems for 2.5 years throughout my master's studies. And Margaret invited me to talk to you about flood management studies in TALTECH. I reduced the topic to urban flood management studies as a general topic, but then most specifically, I will talk about my master's thesis results, which actually propose a methodology for Estonian cities to assess the urban pluvial flood risk, because as you might probably know, the after flood directive has been in place for now a decade almost, or more even. Then cities or countries are quite advanced in assessing flood risks, but the capacity and tools to assess the pluvial flood risk in urban areas is, at least in Estonia, quite limited. I just quickly introduce our research unit. It's Urban Water Systems Research Group, and we are quite small group, 6 people, and we are mostly dealing with the hydraulic and smart aspects of urban water infrastructures. So real-time control, modeling, different kind of optimization algorithms, and smart planning, and of course lab testing of hydraulic systems is our field of competences. So when just understanding the flood studies in TALTECH, and in addition to us, there is this water environmental department which is dealing with these issues, and also Marine Institute, which is doing high-tech stuff with GIS and environmental DNA and modeling of circuits and things like that. So yes, remote sensing and things like that are their competencies. So we are more in this field of mechanics of fluids, and we are working with urban flood issues under various projects. So very recently we just ended Interreg NOAA project, which dealt with combined sewage areas, which also are affected with these climate change issues, and due to the exposed higher exposure of flood risk, then they fail. So we developed smart planning, decision support tools for urban areas, and built up concrete sites where flood risk is mitigated by smart control algorithms. So basically real-time control and model predictive control algorithms that put to work different kind of actuators that either close or open to protect flood areas. And the project part is going a step further and dealing with developing different kind of novel sensors which can be used in urban drainage systems to understand what is happening in this network. The clean stormwater is dealing with different kind of combined treatment solutions. As also Maria told, that there are you have to provide complex answers to this complex project problem, and it is not possible to have like only green or only gray solutions. So this project is proposing green, gray, non-structural or soft and smart measures. Then there is many others, some more related to practical solutions, some more related to governance solutions. But anyways, we are working on the flood management matters in different kind of projects. The idea for my presentation is to go through the methodological framework I proposed for Estonian cities, and propose some kind of different risk mitigation solutions, which we have come up with, and maybe think of also future collaborations. As you listen to all this, what Maria told, then it all seems so simple. Just this sustainability goals and more greener city and the smart planning, and all this seems so simple that it obviously needs to be done. And of course, as the climate change brings more intensive rains and urbanization causes cities to be more exposed to the large amounts of runoff, then something needs to be changed, of course. But actually, cities don't have tools to address this topic. And if you have large areas with like tens of thousands of meters of pipelines which flood some places, and you don't really know what's the cause, because with the fluvial floods, it's understandable that the flood comes from the water body and reaches to some point, depending from the climatic factors. But in urban drainage system, the cause of the hazard can be from here, but the water can come up to the streets on the other place. So basically, it is not that simple. Cities have dealt with pluvial floods in Estonia, at least based on historical experiences, where they have occurred, just based on precautionary principle. But when they are reinventing the cities or making planning decisions, they need actually more. They need to understand where the flood risk comes from. Currently, the Estonian Water Act does not require assessment of pluvial flood risk, but as it's quite widely acknowledged that the problem is there, the climate change is understood, that more frequent and intensive precipitation is already happening. Most cities in Estonia all acknowledge that there is a problem, and they need to consider this in their planning decisions and infrastructure design. Currently, there has been no state-approved methodology in place for Estonian cities, and the cities don't have adequate data sets to carry out this broad pluvial flood risk assessment procedures. And only a few cities until now in Estonia have participated in the pilot projects which have provide them understanding of their pluvial flood risk. What I did, I combined the existing standardized risk management framework. Probably everybody it's quite logical. It's risk assessment is done in several sequences. You can repeat it like every after a while as the procedure foresees, or any time you need to you have changed the baseline and you have to make it at request. And risk analysis itself, or risk assessment itself, consists of steps: identification, analysis, and evaluation. Identification is understanding the causes, analysis understanding the consequences, and evaluation is understanding what is the treatment, what needs to be done. And then, of course, something needs to be done. Risk needs to be treated, and you, of course, have to monitor and review what is the consequences of this treatment. Aside to that, there is quite a broad scientific and university accepted concepts available. The United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Agency has offered the concept for disaster risk, which is basically a function of likelihood of hazard, the magnitude of exposed features, like areas, amount of buildings, and vulnerability, which can be defined as you wish, basically. The most common, it's social vulnerability, environmental vulnerability, economic vulnerability, and cultural vulnerability. In scientific literature, planning and risk assessment is a topic of growing interest. There is several times increase of number of articles in the last 10 years, but in most cases the existing methodologies which have been provided are either for very large areas and very generalistic, or for very fine-tuned small-scale areas for assessing the treatment options. So there is no combined holistic understanding how to carry out risk assessment in urban areas for understanding the flavial flood risk. And of course, we have built on our existing previous work on smart modeling and so on. So I proposed a tiered approach for the flavial flood risk assessment. So basically combining this risk function with the risk standard. As I told, the risk standard consisted from risk identification, risk analysis, and risk evaluation. And in each stage, there is a different way how to apply this risk function. And in each stage, you go into more detail. And so it's possible to work on broad city level and reach down to this concrete site level where you evaluate the risk. It is a dynamic problem. Such an approach allows to adapt to changing urban features, changing cityscape, changing urban vulnerabilities, and also the changing climate, as this methodology allows to consider the various climate hazards. Basically, in these three tiers, there is different outputs. In the tier 1, it's possible to analyze the flood susceptibility for the whole city. Then for the high-risk catchments, urban catchments, it's possible to understand the damage potential of urban floods. And then in high-risk subcatchments, it's possible to find the flood treatment options. In different stages of this risk assessment procedures or tiers, the interconnectedness of the risk factors are considered in a different level of depth. So basically for the citywide assessment where things are quite generalistic, many of these interconnectedness are rejected because it makes the analysis too difficult. But in the later stages, it's taken into consideration with the methods of modeling and understanding these tight interconnected features. Which I mean, what I mean by this interconnectedness is that you can get different exposure, but for risk assessment, it's difficult to consider it if you do it in a citywide scale. What it is possible to do then, we apply this GIS raster analysis methodology, which just allows to take different kind of hazard indices, exposure indices, and vulnerability indices, and apply them into this risk function. And as you might have noticed from my previous slide, that also coping capacity needs to be acknowledged. Then for a risk assessment, the tier 1 is acknowledged as a separate indices in this function, but in this second level, it is part of the modeled hazard indices. The risk assessment values, the risk factors are calculated by just raster calculations. This methodology allows to apply these sources of analysis capacity to most efficient way. So basically for wide areas, it uses low effort methods, really simple GIS analysis and public data. And for the high risk, already site-based surveys are made. Monitoring is required for calibration. Higher effort is considered. With identified high-risk subcatchments, already site-by-site intensive expert evaluation is carried out. So basically, it can be considered like it's going from large to narrow, but all blocks actually a similar effort or time is used, but just on the identification stage, we are working with large amounts of data, and with simple methods, we can optimize the resources. I validated the methodology in Rakvere case study, which is a small town of Estonia. It's about 10 square kilometers in northern part of Estonia, quite densely populated to Estonian towns, and it's mostly located in catchment of Soonikoja. Even though the area is not exposed to fluvial flooding, then the water tables in Soonikoja Creek affect the performance of the drainage system. To analyze the flood risk in this city or town, the small urban catchments were drawn based on the land cover analysis, flow direction modeling, and of course the performance of urban drainage systems. For the risk identification stage, the risk function was put together from different risk factors, and for these, I don't start to read what kind of factors or how I calculated the indices, but anyways, all these data is taken from public data sets and available for all Estonian cities. So this could be easily automated by central databases, and all cities could have such generic flood susceptibility risk maps. And these, however, it's possible to calculate to just quite fine grain, then this is not providing you very correct measures, which is due, it is necessary to generalize this risk assessment to this catchment level, and understanding that this catchment needs to be investigated further. The methodology allows to develop different kinds of risk scenarios. This is a baseline scenario, just understanding as is the flood risk. But if, for example, the risk function is like considered with novel policy measures like applying the green factor or doing some kind of large-scale planning decisions, this coping capacity factor could be added to the risk function, and then it's possible to have then like comparative risk maps. As you see, like this applied green factor reduces the risk in this area. However, the central part of the city is still remaining downgrade. For the risk analysis part, when we have identified the high risk areas, it is then much more in-depth analysis needs to be done. And depending of the catchment performance, different methods can be used. In my work, I use this option or solution how to model the flood risk using the possibilities of stormwater management modeling capacity. So basically, doing small sub-catchment level risk assessment, which takes into account the precipitation intensity, frequency, duration curves, taking into account the infiltration factors and of course hydraulic capacity of the urban drainage systems. So this is, as a result, we have this combined hazard map, which is then compared to this vulnerabilities, exposures, which results with this risk map, because it's understandable that if a flood occurs in a parking lot, it causes different risk than if it occurs in densely built up area where people live. Again, it allows to build different risk scenarios. Here, I compare different climate adaptation scenarios. Now we already have this societal challenges scenarios, but I used RCPs. So it is understandable that with more frequent rains, more intense rains, the flood risk is higher. And when then reach to this risk evaluation stage, then it is possible to see that it's also a bit validates my methodology that these areas which are red here, the photo is taken from here. So the water is on streets. And now, as I know the damage potential, I know the exposed features, I know the vulnerabilities, it is possible to find the best mitigating measures. The analysis data of the tool yeah, just a few conclusions about the methodology. It has a high automation potential as it can be linked with public registries and municipal GIS. It can apply this ArcPython and SVM-Pi algorithms. It is possible to assess the pluvial flood risk in different scales and scopes. It allows to update analysis at any request or to upgrade it as is required for the different strategical assessments. It would improve cities' capacity in database decision making and apply different kind of potential risk mitigation measures. In terms of risk mitigation, this is now not anymore my work, but what we are working with, again, combined solutions is what we recommend. This traditional gray infrastructure is there and needs to be working, but in different scales of events, like just high intensity rain events or cloudbursts, which last really long, different kind of urban acceptance is required and also different kind of measures need to be applied. As Maria also told, soft measures, non-structured measures like participatory planning, precautionary planning, model predictive site selection for finding the best solutions, the real-time controlled actuators, and of course design of the best nature-based solutions of sustainable urban drainage systems is really required. What we are doing as follow-ups, this methodology is going to be fine-tuned to respond to Estonian building stock. We have to understand the flood risk for Estonian buildings. As we all know that Europe is facing the high renovation wave in the future, then it is necessary to be sensible with that and not renovate the areas which will be flooded soon. So first you should reduce the flood risk and then make this energy efficiency investments, because otherwise you just waste the funding. The big project would also advance further plot-based risk evaluation methods and find solutions for built-up areas, how to apply different kind of green and smart measures. Because at least for Estonia, we have in the current state the problem that everybody understands that green roofs and green roof walls and water retention systems are required in urban areas, but how to do this and how to perform, make them perform is a challenge. And of course, not only how to make them, but how to manage them, because so all of these systems, you can't just leave them be, because pipes you can leave usually, or there is not so much maintenance needed. But all these green solutions need really intensive maintenance. Just wrapping it up, as you are going to Pärnu and probably going to the speech, then if you have any ideas about, or you have faced similar problems or have good ideas, then we are currently working on a project idea together with City of Pärnu, in which this urban coastal area is facing this challenge that both floods and this urban drainage system of residential area bring quite high level of nutrients to the sea. And there is this very nice Natura 2000 area with urban coastal meadows, which need to be managed by grazing. But then animals, of course, have side products. So there is this challenge of understanding whether the feces of cows is the main cause of Baltic Sea's blooming in August, or is it really the non-performing sewage system of this residential area? So we are planning to do environmental DNA along with our good colleagues from Marine Institute, and study the water quality issues, probably with good colleagues from water and environmental department, and then find out solutions how to solve this challenge. So cows could be there still, because it's really attractive to have a pasture area in the middle of urban city. But yeah, we also don't want to swim in feces. So yeah, if you have any ideas or would like to collaborate on such a topic, then please contact us.